Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Space Game Junkie Podcast. I, as always, am your co-host, Brian. And joining me, as always, is your co-host, Spaz.
Hello.
And I'm honestly not sure where our other co-host is. Last week, it was a medical emergency. Not sure what's going on this week. But, folks, we have a game. We have a developer this week. We have a guest. I'm out of it. I'm sorry. I'm so tired. We have a guest this week, my friends.
That's what you love to hear. Your interviewer just is completely, completely.
My God. I know.
The guest is useless. The host is useless. One of the guys isn't there. We're gonna rock it tonight.
I'm already forking up. Ladies and gentlemen,
brought to you by enough caffeine.
Oh my God, really? Ladies and gentlemen, we have a guest joining us from Atlanta, Georgia, the director of holistic design, Andrew Greenberg. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you very much. Really happy to be here, and off to space we go.
Oh, I'm excited to talk to you because, folks, if you're not aware, we're going to talk about a newer game tonight, mostly called Noble Armada Lost Worlds, but the Fading Suns universe is a far longer history than just this one game, and I want to talk about all of it because it's
sorry, contract says just this game.
God damn it! Fine. No, it's up there with it's up there as one of my favorite role playing universes. This and Heavy Gear are my favorites, to be honest.
Nice.
Yeah, I love them.
You like crappy worlds. I mean, worlds where everything's kind of crap. Sorry.
It's not just crap. It's really fleshed out crap. Really well fleshed out. So, but this is not the first computer game in the Fading Suns universe. So I want to go back. Well, let's talk about what Fading Suns is before we really get started. How would you, in maybe like an elevator pitch, how would you describe the Fading Suns universe?
Fading Suns is a Dark Ages in space IP, where humanity reached the stars, created the perfect society, and is this 18 and up? And fucked it all up. I don't know anymore. And you are left to play around in the ruins. You can either build the humanity back up, or tear it back down again. So yeah, that's the elevator pitch. So we've got the feuding noble houses dueling with rapiers at their grand balls and with their galleots in the depths of space. You have the Universal Church crushing everyone under its booted heel, but split by schism and racked by heresy. You have the merchants hoarding the last of technology for themselves. You have bizarre aliens, freakish mutants and psychics. And out there in the depths of space, the suns are seen to fade, and there are things that want to eat your soul. So, happy, joy.
It's a very positive, happy version of the universe, which is what we really all need right now.
We're really positive you'll die painfully.
Almost utopian, you could say.
So,
in the classical definition of the term utopian.
So it started as a... Hi, Jim.
They'll sell you Suns pre-faded.
Ladies and gentlemen, your co-host, Jim.
The pre-faded Suns were big in the 80s.
So this started off as a pen and paper role-playing game. When did that start off? Remind me. Like, it was a while ago.
Right. So we formed Holistic Design in '95. I had been the original developer of a tabletop role-playing game called Vampire the Masquerade. And I hooked up with the guys at Several Dudes Holistic Gaming. They'd done some very neat computer games, PC games. Battles of Destiny had been one. They'd just gotten a Game of the Year for Merchant Prince, which we released as Machiavelli the Prince.
Machiavelli the Prince. Holy crap. Yeah.
Woo. Thank you. So we teamed up forces. They're working on Hammer the Gods at that point with New World. We worked on that together. Bill Bridges also left White Wolf. He was the original Werewolf developer.
Dear
so
Lord.
We started doing the science fiction universe we'd always wanted to do. So again, we have all of these elements of science fiction that we love, that we absolutely adore. And we weren't really seeing well represented in the science fiction at the time. And there's science fiction games we loved at that point. But the depth of the science fiction canon is just so massive. There's so much good stuff out there. And we really wanted a setting that encapsulated the best of it. So we have the Fading Suns universe where you can do everything from have these far-flung space opera adventures to do this a post-apocalyptic rebuild from the ground up sort of setting to massive political battles to cyberpunk to everything. And that's kind of been one of the issues with it. There is a few too many kitchen sinks in there, but really it's what we loved about it. And most of the folks who play it, that's what they like as well. They can really make it the game and the universe they want. So we started with the tabletop RPG, but we had the first computer game underway at the same time. We started off with Microprose as our publisher on that. Some of you might remember that company. Yeah, exactly.
I miss it every day. Every day, yeah. I miss Microprose.
Yes. Well, unfortunately, while we were under contract, or while we were working on the contract with them, they got bought by Spectrum Holobyte, and a lot of external stuff just disappeared, including us. So we had to go find another publisher. We found a new home with Sega Soft. Sega had just formed a group to get into the PC market. So we worked with them, and we were one of their few PC releases, and apparently one of their two most successful, before Sega closed that shop up to focus on console.
What was the other one, Rocket Jockey?
No, it was another pretty cool game, and I've actually got to look back and I got to actually go to ask the Googles next door. Hold on a sec. Sega Soft Good Games. It'll be a short.
I have to admit, I remember the advertising for Emperor of the Fading Suns
as
being
we have an official apology from them.
Very confusing. Like it was a kitten and a duck. Or something?
Yeah, we got an official apology.
Really?
From them for that one. Yeah,
oh,
exactly.
Good, because that was terrible. That was just.
Yeah, I think Spacebar was the other one that sold well.
Oh wow! Spider Robinson Spacebar.
Yeah, Gretzky. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Wow!
Yeah, we were their best seller, and then I think Spacebar bumped us off for a little bit, and then they closed up shop.
Yeah, they were not long for this world, Sega Soft.
No, they were not. They did a number of really games.
Which sucked for Emperor of the Fading Suns because
it did.
Did you ever consider it finished? Because it was still fairly buggy when Sega Soft shut down.
The big thing that I don't think has ever hit the point that we want to. I mean, we had to finally launch. That's always the issue. And the whole church aspect of it, we got a little bit in, but not everything we wanted to. So yeah, a lot more. There should have been a lot more interaction with the church and the aliens. Of course, we could have done so much more with, but it was the church that never hit its high point. Now, the game itself, I love. Loved playing it. Loved working on it. Loved every aspect, and most importantly, I loved the mods that came out. I love the UGC for that.
Yeah, I was doing some PBEM with mods with that just a couple of years ago, and it was so fun. And even 22 years later, there's still really not another game like it. To this day.
I hope we didn't kill the genre, but I just love these galaxy-spanning games where you can do so many things. I mean, the potential is limitless, and that's part of the problem. We had to keep reining ourselves in. Sega Soft wanted more and more things, and we were every time we started expanding, it's like, no, pull it back. We'll never get this done.
Wow. But it does so many things that even modern games don't do. It has religion, and even if you say it's not as complete as you would have liked, it's still more than a lot of games do. It's got a lot of games don't have space and ground stuff and planetary bombardment. And
that's a big thing, and the tech research, and the factories,
and the houses, and everything. Right. Yeah, it's just there's so many layers to it that and maybe that's one of the reasons it hasn't really been emulated is because it's like an onion. There's just so much, to it. And
that's exactly right. Us trying to put in everything we loved about science fiction.
And you really did succeed because it has, it's got the politics. The diplomacy system in that game is really still one of the finest you will find in any it's just so nuanced. Like, I think the only game that maybe's come close since then, as in far of Space 4X's, maybe is Star Ruler 2, which is just from a couple of years ago.
The people who could do it would be Hairbrained, formerly FASA, because they could do because they have their own great houses sort of thing in the whole BattleTech universe.
Sure.
And of course, land combat, right? So if you could do like instead of the armies that were in Fading Suns, they could say, well, it's BattleMech regiments.
Was there ever any?
You could still drop to a hex map per planet and kind of do. But I don't think that'll ever emerge.
I'm a big fan of Hairbrand. I'd love to see them get into the more political side of those games.
Was there ever a space component to the BattleTech universe?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
Oh, really?
very huge.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
Not only did they have the aerospace, which is space fighters primarily, they also had battle space, which is warships, and then on top of that, you had the board game, which was Succession Wars. And you're not dealing with just individual companies. You're dealing with regiment-sized units you're moving around the map. And the map is the entire inner sphere.
Yeah, and basically they would need to just make Succession Wars as a computer game. But I don't know that the audience is there at the scale that they would need it to be to fund a project like that. So,
a big part of the issue for this, we talk about content for these sorts of games, and we used to call games like AFS the chiclet games. You got the little chiclets moving around on the board, and you really can't get away with that look anymore. And so you've got to build all this unit art up.
Yeah, and art gets super expensive.
Good art, yeah, absolutely. But would certainly love to see more games like that come about. I just love those all-encompassing games. These are the games that have that great dawn is coming moment when you started playing at 4 p.m.
Yeah, well, even like the Dune universe, right? Like nothing much has been done with that since Westwood touched it last, and it's also another great houses political grand theater thing in space, which it just remains untapped. So.
It might be licensing issues too.
I'm sure there's some stuff with the Herbert family or whatever. So,
yeah, we'd certainly love to see more of that kind of fun.
So
yeah, a lot of folks will compare some of the FS stuff to Dune, and we had a number of good people. Myself and Bill Bridges were the two main creators on it. We had other good people involved, but for me, certainly the Asimov Foundation series was always what really fascinated me most in this setting. Just that idea of the star-spanning rise and collapse of civilization and the people who would be involved in that. Just always adored that.
So a couple things. First, we have a question from the audience over on YouTube. Craig would like to know if there's any chance of Emperor of the Fading Suns ever getting on Good Old Games, or GOG.
We are actually in discussions with GOG right now about one of our games that's already up there, Warhammer 40K Final Liberation. That's not there for several years, and we're still waiting on royalties from that one. So we would like to do more with GOG, but we're trying to at least get this first one hammered out, and it's been a while taking care of it. So, I mean, I love the games I play on GOG. I've given them far more money
oh my God.
than they'll probably have to give me.
I have hundreds of games on there. So many games. I forgot Final Liberation was your baby. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So how did that work out? It's on GOG. They're selling it, but the rights are still hazy, or what? It's like you're still trying to iron that out.
I believe I found out how they got the rights. So when we did the game, it was a 3-group collaboration. Obviously, Games Workshop owned the rights and worked very closely with them on that. SSI was the publisher and licensed the rights. And we did the game. They licensed a lot of our engine, though we modified it significantly. So they had a license to use our engine. And of course, we were supposed to get royalties on any versions of it that ever were done. So we were getting royalties from SSI. SSI got sold and sold again and sold again, and the parts were scattered. I mean, it was sold to Mattel at one point, and then it really got confusing to track down. So then suddenly I find that GOG's talking about doing the game, and we still have the license to the engine. They're not supposed to be able to do anything without our approval, or at least giving us royalties on it. So reach out to them. And it's been a while working through the details with them. So, but hopefully it's finally getting resolved. We were getting things resolved, and then I got to the point of shipping Noble Armada. So that's stopped on my part for a bit. Now I'm waiting for things from them.
Now, this is not the first Noble Armada game. There was supposed to be another Noble Armada game.
Oh yeah,
About
and therein lays a tale.
I want to hear this
tale.
tale because I played that demo. God, was it the early 2000s or the late 90s?
99.
99?
Yep.
Same thing.
Yep.
It's still online. You can still get it online. I still love it.
But it was
Still love
supposed to be
playing
this.
Do it.
It was supposed to be this kind of open universe thing. So what happened with that Noble Armada game?
All right. Oh my goodness. So, late 90s, we've done very well with our most recent games. Final Liberation had done well. Emperor Fading Suns had done well for Segasoft before Segasoft shut down. And so we had a good track record of solid games and solid sellers. We weren't AAA by any means, but we were full solid single A. Our games could sell 100,000 units and everyone would make money. And then Panasonic decided that they were going to get into the piece. They wanted to get into the games industry. They were Sony's competitor forever. Panasonic, yes.
Wait a minute. Panasonic.
Yes, CDI, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were involved with the deal that that ended up with Sony getting really pissed off at Nintendo because Nintendo had made a deal with them initially to develop for a CD drive game system.
And we got fabulous Legend of Zelda game out of that.
And then they Nintendo reneged on the deal, and then Sony decided, okay, well, we're going to get in the market ourselves. So that was all of that.
Google up Zelda on the CDI.
I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that happened.
It's a meme that wrote itself.
Man. I remember the CDI. It didn't last long. It wasn't long for this world, but
this is like Ralph Bakshi on crack did a Zelda game.
What?
With bad acting,
including the line, "I'm so hungry I could eat an Octorok."
Yeah. Do you remember before the Lord of the
design.
Rings movies, there was the animated Ralph Bakshi ones?
Sure.
Of
course.
And stuff. Okay, so take that, turn it into really poorly drawn Zelda at like 240p, and then the worst acting that you could possibly put in a studio, and that's Philip Magnavox's version of Zelda.
Wow.
Oh, and the gameplay itself is actually infuriating if you survive the cutscenes to get that far.
So anyway,
no lie.
So Andrew, you were going to work. So Panasonic wanted a piece of you guys.
So Panasonic Interactive Media starts up.
Whoa.
We have this great meeting. Panasonic is pledging their resources. They're coming with both feet.
Oh dear.
They're going to be a major player in this space.
This already sounds bad.
So it starts off, we're working with another group. Finally, we take over the whole project. It's a wonderful 7-figure deal. It's a promise of all kinds of support as well as retail channels when it's done. And so we get cranking on it, and we're having a lot of fun with it. And then Panasonic says, just kidding. And I think they were in for like 2 years in the PC world before they pulled out of that and released nothing on the PC that anybody really remembers. They did a game called Baldies, and again, not seeing the numbers they were in any way expecting. And so Panasonic Interactive Media suddenly calls up and says, hey, we're shutting down.
What?
Yeah. And go ahead and find another. You can go ahead and find another publisher. We give you back your rights and all that. So lovely. So we spend some time talking to companies and scrambling. Our producer on that game, really good guy, Grant Collier, is going off with another company that's forming out of some other Panasonic folks called Ripcord Games. And we want to keep working with Grant. And so we decided to go on board with this startup, Ripcord Games. And they've got a number of games out of the Panasonic Interactive Media catalog. And then we learned why Panasonic Interactive Media really wanted to shut down, because the next game that Ripcord releases is called Space Bunnies Must Die.
I remember that game.
You're the one. And they released some nice little games, Spec Ops, Stratosphere, but nothing that sells. And things slow down at Ripcord dramatically.
They did release that one space game called Forced Alliance. That was terrible.
Yep.
It was really terrible.
I like all the people who worked on their games.
It sounded so promising, but it ended up being so bad. Anyway.
So
It makes me sad.
You can imagine, and they basically shut down in '99, which, as you know, is the point we're ready with the demo.
Oh.
So we put out the demo, still working with them, but they pretty much shut up shop, and we're now looking for another publisher. So we've already gone through 2 publishers on this. Ripcord essentially started in Panasonic Interactive Media before they shut down. They took Ripcord private. Sorry, I was responding to chat messages. Should never do that. And so we're left without a publisher for a while, and we're talking to other publishers about taking it up. I mean, there's a good amount of development already funded in this. And then the first Bush recession kicks in the early 2000s. And everything shuts down. And for some of this, we have to take full blame for it because we were used to being a single A house. We were having no luck finding outside investors when things dry up. And we're having to scale up dramatically, and suddenly the resources are gone from it. So unfortunately, Noble Armada, which is requiring a huge budget, has to go on hiatus. We work with Take-Two on a couple games, and those do pretty well for us. We do a new version of Merchant Prince 2, done on what I thought was the smallest budget I was ever going to work on. And then we do MultiCoon on what was the smallest budget I'd ever worked on. But both of those did decently, but not enough to get us refunding Noble Armada. And at that point, it was just getting so hard to find new publishers and the like. We went ahead and started working on other projects, consulting, licensing our stuff off, all that sort of thing. And so Noble Armada went on hiatus for a while, for a long while. And then we came back in when mobile started up, and we say, hey, look, we can do something nice and sweet. We can do a game that instead of being what we wanted with the Noble Armada, Fading Sun's Noble Armada game, which was this galactic spanning RPG, tactical and strategic game with a lot of trading and diplomacy and quests, mixing again all of our favorite elements. We would just do one that focused on the space combat itself. We could afford, and we knew we could finish without a publisher. And that's what this Noble Armada is. If you play the demo that you can still get online, you'll see a much more robust game than we've just released. So It's been a great journey, but we'd still like to do that original Noble Armada. I mean, there's just so much fun stuff in that we had planned. So many great quests, so much exploration of the Fading Sun setting that we really can't do on a project of this size.
And that's a universe that begs to be explored.
I like to think so. Yes. We're still exploring it. And as you might have heard, yes, there is a 4th edition of the role-playing game in the works right now. Bill Bridges is leading the charge on that, due to come out next year. Where
can I pre-order? Are there going to be physical books? Are they going?
Yes.
Thank God. Okay, because I prefer that over PDFs. So I'm old school, I guess, like that. So
yeah, I'm
where can I pre-order? Is there going to be a Kickstarter? I want in on this. I
believe there will be a Kickstarter. The rights are now with Ulysses Spiel for that. Ulysses Spiel just finished up the Torg Kickstarter and is doing a lot of work on that. So once they get the Torg stuff shipped, I think we're going to have our stuff going. Though the writing, I've been cranking on writing for Bill already, and I think that the writing for the main edition is already done. But you didn't hear that from me.
Didn't hear what?
Torg is a name I have not heard in a long, long time.
Oh, I loved Torg. I never wrote for that. I wish I had. My brother wrote a little bit for it. Torg, what did it stand for? Torg is an abbreviation. I can't remember what it stands for.
I've always just had the concept of Cyber Pope stuck in my head.
Yeah. So what they did is they divided the world into a whole bunch of different gaming systems, essentially. And so the U.S. had become kind of a fantasy lizard man setting, and you had the kind of a cyberpunk Europe and pulp Egypt or something like that.
It's kind of a Rifts-esque thing, but before Rifts.
I think they're kind of
about
the same time.
It was before Kevin did Rifts, right?
They were pretty close to the same time. but I think you're right. Wow, why am I not seeing what the dev Torg stands? The other role-playing game. That's right.
Wait.
Torg stood for the other role-playing game.
Boy, that's a Steve Jackson-esque name, isn't it?
And this was West End. I mean, this was Slavis Jack, who I really
It's Torg, the alternative to GURPS.
Oh,
yeah.
That's great. The other role play.
And had a lot of very innovative designs, and I really enjoyed it. But it could have done better. I've always agreed with folks who said their biggest mistake is they made the United States their biggest audience, their least interesting setting. But lots of cool stuff. Anyway, that's coming out from Lizzie Spiel, and we're working with them as well. So, yeah, I'm very excited about what's coming together. And the writing that I've seen from Bill already is a lot of good, interesting stuff. Really getting me all jazzed up about this setting all over again.
I'm so excited because I've run 2 campaigns in Fading Suns.
Excellent!
And they were some of the most fun role playing I've ever done.
Your players still talk to you?
After the second one, it was a little rough because I kind of went psychotic near the end, and that's such an easy game to like. If you're an angry GM, you know, and you don't like what the players are doing, there are so many tools in that game to really mess them up. And, and I used I used a lot of them, and they were not happy with the way that game ended. But I was.
Right. We definitely meant for the power scales to have this extreme differential. So, I mean, just with what we did with the whole IP, the idea was that the computer game was this Emperor War period. You were the leaders of the houses. You had massive power at your control. And as soon as the computer game stopped, the role-playing game started, and suddenly you're one person in this setting dealing with the remnants after these decade-long Emperor Wars. But even at that point, you might be one human, but you're a lot more powerful than your average serf. I mean, you are as a superhero compared to them. But the people at the top level, I mean, it's incremental scales again. They're as superheroes compared to you being an ant. So they have powers that can be brought to bear that you can only dream of. So yeah. The idea of each of the games was they were going to shed a different light on the setting. We were going to look at it through a different angle. So again, the computer game is this galaxy spanning adventure where you're really having to look at it from the complete macro level. The RPG is the micro level, and Noble Armada was kind of that intermediate where you are a ship captain, so more powerful, but you're still just one guy, you know. Just this guy, you know.
He's just this guy, you know.
Hey, if you're talking about ship captains, talk about the best.
So now moving on to Noble Armada Lost Worlds, right? Noble Armada Lost. Okay,
exactly. The main focus is on exploring the Lost Worlds. Humanity reached the stars via jump gates. During the fall of the Second Republic, a lot of these jump gates either shut off on their own or were shut off by the people who lived behind them, not wanting to be caught up in everyone else's mess. And only now are a lot of those being reopened and humanity starting to reconnect and seeing what's been left in the ruins of thousands of years of isolation. People get a little weird when they've been isolated for a few thousand years.
Oh, that explains a lot. So this game is it full Newtonian? Is it like full Newtonian physics?
It is very close. It's as close as we could model. So we're good friends with the folks doing. Good gosh, they're changing the name right now, so I'm caught in between names. Jack Mamias, David Westman's group.
Impeller.
Oh yeah, Impeller. Yeah.
Sorry, they're changing the name, so I'm not sure what I'm supposed to call it right now.
Oh yeah, none of us are sure what there's. It's supposed to. It was Starfighter Inc. It was Starfighter Inc.
Let's just go with Starfighter Inc. I think it's still probably that. But anyway, they're even more hardcore on it than we are. Now we are focusing on the idea that you need to that you don't really have much friction in space. There's no turning on a dime. So instead, you've only got thrusters from the rear of your ship. If you are flying forward at massive speeds at 10% life speed, you've got to use your maneuver jets to spin around and then counter thrust to stop. And if you're not directly counter thrusting, you can maneuver it around in order to re-angle your approach. And it's what I love most about the PC game, but it does take a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, it takes some playing to get used to, because you're not just, I'm flying forward, now I want to fly right. It doesn't work that way. You're re-angling, your batteries only have a certain amount of charge. Alaric is giving away cheats in Discord. Alaric, stop that. And
oh, real?
One of our play testers is been having fun breaking the game in many ways. So yeah, the idea is that you really have to think about where you want to end up in your moving and maneuver very carefully. And it is a real-time combat game, but it's not your standard RTS. I call it pausable real-time. Essentially, you create your own turns. You let the game go. People are shooting and blasting. You pause. You put in new orders. You let it go. You see what happens. You pause. You do what you need to do. So it's up to you to decide.
What key pauses? I was trying the space bar and that wasn't doing it.
Selecting any ships will pause, and late in play, I think we added escape to do that.
Okay, so if you're not using the space bar for anything, strong suggestion.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah,
Agreed.
and writing it down. And
It's a default for tactical pause in many, many games.
Yes, But what if you want your spaceship to jump? Oh, never mind.
Yeah, that and arrow keys moving the map around.
Right. I wrote down space game equals pause. I meant space bar equals pause. But again,
So
this is
it sort of
out of a turn-based background? I want turns, but I want real time. So here's how I do it. Sorry to cut you off so much.
Is it going to be turn-based anyway? Like it'll real time until it gets to a certain timer, and then it pauses regardless, or it just real times forever?
Blown to smithereens.
Yeah, which happens a lot. I've been struggling mightily trying to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and Alaric is the one who keeps trying to ask us to increase the difficulty. So he's in your Discord stream chat.
No, please do not. Please do not increase the difficulty, because
I need a ship with training wheels, and
I won my first battle by blind fucking luck. I have no idea how I won, but apparently I did. Because I'm gonna be honest, I like the game, but there's a lot that isn't explained to the player. And
you went through the tutorial? Because that's part of my problem, redoing that tutorial.
The tutorial is not very comprehensive. Like, I didn't know that ships that turned gray, they seem inactive. Like, I won because all the ships turned gray. Like, oh, that's what happens? So I guess I disabled them, but I didn't know that. I didn't know that's what happened.
That is great to know. That's great feedback.
I was still shooting at disabled ships. I did not know they were disabled because they were gray. I only figured that after I'd shot at them. Like, oh, I guess they're...
Well, and part of the reason we have you able to shoot at the grayed out ships, and this was a back and forth argument,
is to weed down the crews so you can board them?
No, when they're grayed out, they're down. They can't do anything, but you can target other ships beyond that. Your computers only have a limited range, so you can only target out to a certain distance. Remember, we're basically pretending that the massive distances of space combat are these really short areas. They're not. We're talking about huge distances. So your computers only have so much range. But what you can do if there's a ship beyond is you can target one of the grayed out ships, and your shots will go through it and hopefully hit the ships beyond it.
Oh. God.
One of Alaric's favorite cheats.
Again, the tutorial didn't explain any of that. So I would say the tutorial needs some work. Because
all right, that's good to know.
Folks,
we basically did a soft launch of the game now.
Right.
And the idea is to go ahead and add a lot more content and do the more robust launch early.
It already has a good amount of content. You already have a campaign in there. You have several single missions, and there's already an editor, right? There's already an editor.
Yeah, the mission editor is what I love the most. I mean, you can do anything with it. I mean, if you don't want to play Noble Armada, start doing them for any other science fiction setting you love. I have been joking about Zaphod Beeblebrox in this in this stream, but I really want to do a Hitchhiker's Guide fight in there. I've been playing around with it on some of my private games. trying to do the voices. Yeah, sorry, I'm such a Hitchhiker's Guide junkie. I heard the radio show when it was on the radio back in the way back. Anyway,
I have the book of
radio.
I have the book of the radio plays.
Yeah, what's the radio?
It's like MP3s, but you don't get to choose.
Side question: what did you think of the movie from about a decade ago with Martin Freeman? And
it was a good try.
I admit it was. I agree. It was a decent attempt.
Yeah,
I was
not as good as the miniseries, but I still
not as good as
enjoyed it.
I recently broke out the Stephen Fry version of it, and I just grew up on the radio show version of it, and that's the standard in my mind.
Mm-hmm. I have to
Can't
admit,
argue with that.
I have to admit, for that last movie though, Most Def did. I was surprised at how well he did Ford Prefect.
Could have been. I was not disappointed. I was ready to just be horrified.
Yeah, I was too. The horrifying thing was Sam Rockwell as Zaphod. He's a great actor, but in that particular role, I
thought their choice of making him two-headed by having his head like pop out of different places.
Oh God, that was so stupid. So...
Yeah, if they'd have just had his other head like in his pants the whole time, and he'd just like unzip his fly to talk, I don't know. It wasn't my movie.
But yeah, I think I'm gonna be honest. The tutorial is I feel like it's of a different era. It's of an era where gamers had more it's kind of the 90s where gamers had more patience.
You had a thick manual.
Gamers do not have patience in 2018.
That's a great point.
I need a spiral bound about 2-inch manual.
Is there a manual for this thing yet? I have not seen a manual anywhere.
There is actually, if you go into the game, it's not a manual per se, but if you go to the credit screen, we have the Commander's Codex, which spells out some of this.
Oh, you guys need a PDF manual that I can put on my phone and read while I'm on the toilet. You're
actually hitting some of the most important issues that we have. So yes, I am that old school 90s gamer. I either need a huge manual or I'm going to figure it out if it kills me all by myself. And unfortunately, I've kind of set up as a combination of both.
Yeah. So the other thing that I noticed is you can turn the music on and off, but you don't have a slider to change the level of the music, because I like it to be on, but I like it to just kind of be barely there. And also, I can't seem to figure out how to get it to run windowed mode. If there's maybe a flag I can put on it, but there's no option to actually change any resolution stuff. Is it just locked at 1080?
No, there's windowed mode. It's a hotkey, and
okay.
I would have to pull up the game, which I should have pulled up anyway.
There's no binding to the keys, right? It's like
no. We did this game with an engine called Fusion 2.5, and a lot of what we did was pushing that engine forward, working with the company that made it to develop their engine further. Because I love it as a 2D engine, and it's an engine I think is fleshed out, would add a whole lot to what game developers could do.
Mm-hmm.
So, to be honest, a huge chunk of our involvement with this was driving their engine forward as well.
Oh, okay. So, a couple of things. First, you mentioned the music. I want to backtrack a little bit. Folks, if you haven't played Emperor of the Fading Suns, go find the music on YouTube or whatever. The music is one of, personally, my favorite game soundtracks of all time.
Thank you.
Like that, Interstate 76, and Fantasy General are like the top three for me.
Man, that's great company.
Yeah, those are like the top three for me. And so when I loaded this game up, the new one, Craig says that the intro video for Emperor of the Fading Suns is still one of the best. Agreed. That was an amazing intro video. It really got you into the mood, into the zone of that game.
But that's an interesting Segasoft story, actually. So we've been working with Segasoft. They'd released games that weren't doing well. They were really down on what was going on. Their salespeople were really getting burned out. They had a sales meeting with a bunch of buyers. This is back in the days. People might not believe this, but I used to buy your games in boxes at stores.
You don't say!
They don't believe you.
Gosh, Grandpa, tell me another yarn!
But they had a meeting with the poor old grandpa. He just ain't right in the head. Anyway, had a meeting with the buyers, and they played our intro, and apparently all the buyers stood up and applauded because it was the first thing they were seeing from Sega stuff they liked. And so, yeah, I've definitely enjoyed that. I mean, boy, does it show its age. We were so psyched that we were able to do 3D graphics.
Oh man, it reminds me of the. Have you ever seen the cutscenes for Star Crusader? It's got
no.
Oh well, they're very similar in that kind of lawnmower man. That look. You know what I mean? But
unfortunately, I do.
Yeah, but that intro was great. But what I was gonna say is the music. When I loaded up the new game and it was playing that kind of main menu music from the original, I got chills, man. So how'd you get that classic EFS music into the new game?
Yeah, so the Changeling. So we worked with some really good musicians on the first EFS. Had a lot of fun working with them. One of the groups we worked with was a band called the Changelings. They're not together anymore, I'm sad to say, but we'd gotten an agreement with them to use a number of tracks from an upcoming album back when we were doing the Noble Armada game with Panasonic and Ripcord. And we paid them for it. They managed to release a new album based on what we paid them for that. But then, of course, we didn't release the game. The music was sitting around. So as we started doing the new Noble Armada, I reached back out to them, signed a new deal with them so that we could use this music one more time. So, yeah, this was the music we were supposed to use in the original Noble Armada. If we ever do the original Noble Armada, we'll use it again. But Changelings, wonderful band. Their violinist is still a very dear friend of mine, and just very talented. And it's very funny that the violinist, I actually met him when he was a play tester for us on Vampire in the very earliest days of that game back in 90 and 91. So, yeah, we're both amazed that we still know each other, still like each other, and still alive.
That is pretty goddamn awesome. Now, going back to the new game also, you mentioned the editor is one of your favorite parts. Tell us about the editor, because I haven't played with it yet. So what can you do with it?
Right. So we funded the game itself internally, a lot of sweat, tears, and some money, not very much. And we had a mission editor in place that I could use, but that's only because I'm a very demented human being. And that last part of the equation is questionable. It was not something anyone with any sanity points left would ever want to wrestle around with. So we actually did a Kickstarter to fund a mission editor anyone could use. Again, like I said, with EFS, the user-generated content, all this cool stuff that fans made was really, I got to admit, some of the best stuff in the game. So I wanted to have that available for Noble Armada as well. So we worked on the mission editor, and you can do all sorts of different missions with the ships. I mean, you're still stuck in what is primarily a space combat game. We don't have a huge amount of RPG elements in it or adventure game elements. We have some of each, but not a huge amount. I'm the kind of person who would have liked to have had more. Not a lot of trading. So there are limits what you can do, but you create these great missions and really deep missions. And if we manage to clean up the campaign editor, we'll share that with everybody as well. But yeah, being able to do these really extensive missions and battles, and not just in the Fading Sun setting, you can create any you want. You can set up the ships, the wind conditions, all the different battles between the stars, what happens on each planet, and so forth. So I've had a lot of fun with that. I've really enjoyed what players have done. But if you thought this game was tough, most of the missions I've gotten from players, oh my goodness, they hate humanity or something. They are
I can only imagine.
Deadly with a capital DEADLY.
I mean, if they're good enough to not only conquer the game, but conquer the mission editor as well. Excuse me. I can only imagine.
I like to think that mission editor is relatively easy to use.
Right,
but,
again,
I
mean,
I was the guy who was working with one you had to wrestle to the ground and throttle for a while before you could put a ship into play.
Right, but usually the people who make usually use the mission editors are the ones that are very good with the game itself. Like a lot of people don't just dive right into the mission editor. They'll play the game for a while first. So that doesn't surprise me.
You never played Age of Rifles for SSI. They had a
Oh
mission
no, I
editor
did.
for the
I did.
campaign editor.
I love.
did that. I like played one fight and then I started making my own. I can do better than these guys.
I think some of the earliest websites I ever went to were Age of Rifles mission repositories.
Yeah, war
back
game
in the day.
construction set.
Yeah. Oh, I haven't thought about Age of Rifles in the longest time, but that's another game that needs to be on GOG. Oh my god.
I'll firmly agree with you on that one. No,
Oh.
these are the games where you're a game designer. You go in there and immediately, I can do better than that, and you make utter crap. But it's what you made, so that's what matters.
Now, the missions that you can get for this game on Workshop, I don't remember seeing Workshop support, or is there another place to get them?
So right now, it's just basically going to be traded back and forth between. We're going to include some in the next versions of the game. You'll notice we're still on like version 0.8 something.
Yeah.
Or other. So the idea is we want players to be trading them in our discussion areas and so forth.
Oh, okay.
Because you can just copy them right into the directory and you're ready to go with them.
Oh, okay.
We've
That's not hard. Okay.
Yeah, we've got a variety of options within the Noble Armada directory in your Steam folder. So you've got the campaign missions, which you really can't do anything with right now, though you can edit them. Something we always do. We want players to be able to edit everything we do, so everything's INI and I files. So you can go in and edit the missions that are there just in text-wise.
Oh my god, INI files. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, break out the DOS machine.
INI files. Do you have a config sys in there as well? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I couldn't help it. I'm sorry. That was mean. I'm sorry.
Hey, what do you got against config sys? I live and die by the
nothing.
config sys.
I lived in there. I had to I got to squeeze out that last K so I can get Strike Commander to run. God damn it. God damn it.
Exactly right. Exactly right. But yeah, so we've got the level data, which are our basic missions, and we've got an area just for user missions, and you can create them there, and you can get them from other folks, put them in there, and change them around however you want. You can move them from our mission or level data into the user missions, edit them, and move them back. And yeah,
that's pretty nice.
We're trying to give players as much control as we can.
Well, that's very nice because some games like they love modding, but they don't make it easy. Like I think it was Sins of a Solar Empire. It's like, yeah, you can download the mod, but then you gotta like edit some crap in the folder, and not even in the game folder. It's like the documents / my games / whatever. Crap.
No, and I firmly understand why. I mean, level editors are a pain to make user friendly. That's why I did a whole Kickstarter just to fund a good mission editor. They are a pain to make. They're so easy to make for just the people working on the game to use. Because we understand it all. Mm-hmm. But you want anyone else in there. Well,
that's the thing. A good level editor can give a game legs beyond initial sales. Like,
absolutely.
To an amazing degree.
In my day, the level editor was called Notepad.
You can still do it in Notepad. Just dig in.
Oh my god!
Copy the ones I got, and you can have fun. Just figure out what the 0s, 1s, and 3s and 4s means.
Yeah, I used to edit levels uphill both ways in the snow.
But the other part of this, and this goes back to my days as vampire developer. I mean, I'm very proud of what I created with Chicago and Succubus Club and all these other things we did for the Sabbat and everything I did for Vampire. But what the players came up with was always phenomenal. And in tabletop, it's so easy to give players that sort of control. On a computer, it's so much harder. And I'm so glad every time I can do that. And it's always the best. MultiCoon. So here's a simple little game. You make a mall. But I love what players would come up with. And it was another one of those games where we had the basic game there. It was designed for tweens. But we found a significant chunk of our audience were adults. And for people who didn't want to get into it, you didn't have to move any levers. You could just play the game simple. But if you wanted to really dig into it, we gave you all sorts of levels you could move and change around and lots of control over it. We had people who would send us copies of levels of malls they'd made, which are just mind-boggling. I even used the game at one point to demonstrate senior living houses just by modifying some of the numbers so your mall just pulled seniors all the time. We had various demographics of shoppers and things like that. So
I've never played.
Yeah, I love giving players those tools.
I've never played one of the MultiCoon games, but now that I'm looking at it, I want to very badly. Which one would you recommend? 1 or 2?
Ours, one, of course. Yeah, unfortunately, we did not do two. That was, we had first right of refusal on the sequel. We found out they were shopping the sequel around. We said we wanted to do it. They gave us a very low number. We said, okay, we can do it for that. And then they came back and gave us a number that was half that. I was like, fine, take it to the Europeans and let them do it. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably find a copy on eBay like tonight and just get that because that looks. I love Tycoon games and games like that, and I never played this one, so I'm gonna have to fix that. That looks great. I wonder if it still works. I'll figure it out.
Yeah, good question. I haven't gotten one of mine to run a number of years, but I haven't exactly tried too hard.
So when did you start working on this new Noble Armada?
A number of years ago. So I met one of the Click Team is a group that makes the Fusion engine, and I met one of their lead engineers at GDC a number of years ago, and we were talking. He was a Fading Suns fan. He had just done a space game. So we started throwing around ideas for this, and we started bandying back and forth. Neither of us had much time to put into it until recently. But we started doing different versions of it, throwing things back and forth to talk about what could be done. The main issue, I have to admit, was that movement system. Did we want to go ahead and do something new or go with conventional click-drag and send your units off? Or do we actually want to try and do the physics? So we agreed finally to go ahead and really focus on the physics as defined in the tabletop miniatures game. This is based on a miniatures game. I don't know if I said that part. And so we hashed out the physics engine for a while, and over the past year, really got to work on it and finished it up to this level in September. Then I had to take a break and put together the Siege conference I do every year, just did the 12th annual Southern Interactive Entertainment and Game Expo, the largest professional game development conference in the South, which was a lot of fun. And now getting back into work on it, looking forward to a whole bunch of new levels and looking at this backlog of mission levels from some of the fans who've been creating stuff.
So how?
Answer your question. What was the question? Wait a minute. What was I talking about?
No, you answered it. How long have you been working on it? Now what is the name? Remind me the name of the engine. I don't think I've ever heard of this engine you're using. Fusion, I think it's called.
Currently, Fusion 2.5 has been known as Multimedia Fusion. Shows you how old it was back when multimedia was a thing.
Wow.
And it's an excellent little 2D game engine. It's very robust. Lets you do a lot of things. You can get into it very simply. You can put together games like in an hour and have a pretty full game pretty quickly. Or you can go in depth with it and do something like Noble Armada. We really, really stretched the limits of what you could do. And one of the fun things about working with one of their engineers on this, Chris Carson, was that what we were doing for Noble Armada ended up in new versions of their Fusion engine. So we were very happy to drive it forward that way. One of the things I love is working with new game devs. That's why I do the Siege convention. I've even taught game design at a couple of schools. And just love to give them tools that are step up from like Game Maker. Love Game Maker, but give them tools that are more robust than that, but aren't like Unreal. Something intermediary there, and that's where I think Fusion 2.5 falls perfectly.
And is this going to be a mobile game as well? Because it seems really geared toward, like, with the dragging and everything. It seems like it would work very well in a touch interface. That's
exactly right. In fact, we started devising it as an iOS title, and then we sat down and said, look, we're PC junkies. Let's admit what we are. So yes, you're seeing a hybrid, and it is very much aimed at being mobile early next year as well.
Oh, great. Well, that'll be a bigger audience, I'm sure. But
we're not going to be able to do the missions back and forth. So another part of the reason to go PC was, I want more UGC. I want to see what players create. And you can't do that very well for mobile like we can do for the PC. That kind of was the thing that broke the camel's back. That's why we said, let's put the mobile on the back burner and do the PC and have a lot of fun with it.
It's totally fair.
Yeah, and it has taken me a while to start clicking with it, but because I'll admit, it really isn't, again, the tutorial, it doesn't really explain that it's kind of Newtonian. So, like, I was trying to just move around like a naval, like Starfleet Command or something. It's like, nope, that's not how any of that works.
And it's actually, to a great degree based on like the Wooden Ships and Iron Men sort of games, the Napoleonic
God,
era
really?
War of 1812, Crossing the T.
Jeez.
You've got your broadsides. You want to line them up, maneuver to line up your best broadside, and then close to end with cutlass and laser on the other guy's ship. Yeah, very much set up like that. And again, I mean, that whole maneuvering at sea, you can't just turn on a dime. I mean, you're not controlled by the winds of space, but you do want to maneuver around. You can't just immediately take a hard left.
I've played all the ships. I've played all those games too, so I love Age of Sail stuff. So I've played.
And there was a great, just as a complete aside, there was a great. So we were talking about mech games earlier. There's a fun little mech game takeoff on Wooden Ships and Iron Men called Wooden Suits and Iron Men.
Wait, what?
What if Babbage had made his computer and you had mechs back in the Victorian era? So all these giant wooden mechs battling it out. I'm glad you don't have me on camera because I just did the whole flailing, battling it out.
I've never heard of it. What's it? I can't find this. What is it? Wooden Suits.
It was I believe it was Wooden Suits and Iron Men. Just a little cheap throwaway mech game back in the 90s.
I have to find that because
I have a copy of it somewhere in my game library.
So we
nope, that's not it. So I'll have to take a look.
So we have a question, well, a couple questions from Craig. Can you talk?
Hi, Craig.
Can you talk? Can you talk a little about ship stats? What are they? Speed, firepower, crew, etc. Types of weaponry, and how does damage management work?
All right, yeah. Ship stats. Let's see, 36, 24, 59. No wait. So we rate the ships for a number of different things. One is their actual gun hard points is an odd one. So you've got broadsides, but they have a certain number of guns per each, and each ship is different. Some don't even have front and rear guns. Most guns have front, rear, left, and right guns. Someone just pinged me about the potato mech game. Sorry about that.
Yeah, sorry. I had to send you that Kartoffelkrieg animated GIF.
All right.
It's like Steve Jackson's potato ogre.
Ogre. You see, now this is another spaceship game I want to do, and it's not my idea. It was an old friend of mine, Les Burks, used to work for Chaosium, used to talk about. He just wanted to do this massive dreadnought game when games are just getting more and more uber powered, where your ship is eating stars and throwing planets at each other, and just powered by galaxies and things like that. Just Ogre was always my classic example. Just how big can you envision your thing to be?
So did you, I mean, you've probably read some sci-fi, Saberhagen's Berserker series.
Oh, yeah.
So, which was basically like an AI Death Star that would come for planets, right? So how much, it's basically an ogre, right? But it's in space. And then you could have, instead of tanks, you have a fleet of fighters or
whole armada coming after being devoured.
Yeah, it's like in Star Trek, the Wolf 359 battle, where you have like the entire Starfleet shows up to fight one Borg cube and lose. Right. I'm really shocked that nobody has ever done anything with the Saberhagen stuff.
Yeah, because see, the ogre thing is just classic. I mean, you have the ogre versus every tank in the game, and the ogre still just rolls over them. So, that sort of idea of uber power. I remember people talking about trying to do a Berserker license at one point. I don't know why it never happened.
Yeah, because I mean, it seems like a no-brainer. Like, do you shoot the engines off? Do you shoot the guns off? Do you like try to destroy like the doomsday bomb that if it gets close enough, it's going to just destroy it anyway, or what? So it's just like one team versus the unstoppable object, and you just have to like dissect it before it gets there. Right, I think it would make an actual like, even for like a mod for something like Free Space 2 or whatever, if they could revitalize multiplayer in that, or I should for that unnamed game that Impeller's working on, they're changing the name. Maybe that's a mode that they put in there, right? It would be, instead of horde mode, it's more like No, you just have to fight this one really big thing that will kill you.
Right. And
Yeah,
I love that because
I'll
you've got all these
suggest
strategies.
it.
Do I do waves against them? Do I try and get surgical? Yeah, you've got all these different options you can follow up on. So, but we're talking about ship stats. Boy, did we diverge. All right.
Tangents
So obviously
happen.
you've got crew and marines. Crew is kind of your ship's hit points for people, though they also affect how fast you can reload your guns or re-energize your guns.
Oh,
how fast
really?
you get your engines back online. Yeah, and their
Where-
experience speeds that up.
Where do you see that? Like, where can you see your crew stats? Like, is there a place to see that?
There is a ship info button pretty much everywhere you go. So I should have had the game open the whole time.
I
we were
must have
playing.
missed this. Whoops.
Yeah, so if you look up at you just had the game on one of those screens where I could have shown it to you. Yeah, and when you're in the fight at the top, there's a ship info button. When you're on the planets, there's a basic system info button as well to access that. And your Marines also have experience. Obviously, their experience just determines how well they do in fights. And the ships have shields and armor, so shields have to be knocked through and can come back up, but the armor cannot be repaired except between battles, so essentially that acts as your hit points, but it's on each side, so it's not overall. You can have a side almost destroyed and still win the game by keeping that side away from your enemies. Different guns do different power, as Alaris is quick to point out. Hint for you guys who want to win more easily, the blasters are very overpowered. We're working on fixing that now. Yeah, those are the main. Basically the shields and armor are your defense. Your crew is also a defense, as well as getting the engines going and fixing the ship. Marines are your attack and defense on boarding actions. Your guns have range, damage, and accuracy. We also have the missiles now in play that can go flying around and hit at longer ranges than they're supposed to. Actually, all your guns can do damage at a longer range. And you've got 3 different types of ships in this version of the game. You've got the explorers, the frigates, and the galleots. The explorers are the tiny ships that you kind of throw away in combat. The frigates often have the biggest guns, but it's kind of a toss between them and the galleots. And the galleots definitely have the marines, so they tend to be a little slower. But if you get them in for boarding action, they'll do some significant damage. You can rotate between your ships. We've got a number of ways to do that. So you can either click on your house button and just cycle through them, or click on each individual ship symbol to access a different ship. Pulling up the game right now to see if I've forgotten anything, and why didn't I have this game up the entire time? Going into battle, Hawkwood against Al Malik. Come on, my valiant Hawkwood. You've caught the rest of the pirates by surprise as they were returning home.
Lee Halan forever. Lee Halan.
You just like the original demon worshipping Lee Halan. I know you.
I kind of do.
Yeah, there's a ship symbol, green ship symbol at the top, and just click on that and you'll get your ship. You'll read crew on hand, how many, and whether they get any bonuses or not.
I didn't even look at any of that. Okay.
See, this is the problem with me being an old school gamer. I'm used to just exploring things. What does this button do? Oh gosh, I blew up my computer.
Yeah, but there's
just the way.
Either give me a manual or beef up that tutorial. That's all I'm gonna say.
I need to do both.
Those are my.
You are
I would love
wrong.
both. I would love both.
And there's a pause button on the screen. You'll notice in the upper right.
Yeah. But you also pause when selecting one of your ships.
When you hit escape, you pause.
So there's potentially a lot of gameplay here, So you have these missions, and how many tooltips are tooltips in there? I don't remember tooltips.
Should be. I'm right there. We were doing tooltips. I think that was one of the things that got scrapped at the last minute.
Oh, gotta have tooltips.
Tooltips became the tutorial.
Oh, need more than that. What was I gonna say? So, how many battles can you have in one mission? In one mission file?
I think. Well, so it's interesting. You have up to 6 planets. but you can put a battle essentially along each route, and you can put all these different routes into there between all of. There's no limit really on the number of routes you put between planets. So it's I guess it's 6 routes to 6 planets because you have the jump gate in there as well. So at least 36 battles in one mission if you really wanted to.
So would you say one mission is like one system with up to 6 planets?
Exactly.
And there could be multiple paths to get to those different planets.
That is exactly right.
And what did the planets provide? Did the plants provide, like, you can repair, but there are other things that look like the plants can do as well?
That's right. New weapons, more Marines, a listening post to see what's going on. All sorts. And new ships. You can buy more ships at different planets, beef up your growing armada. Yeah, a lot of different options along that way.
And the campaign looked like it's multiple systems, so you go through one system.
That's right. Now you've got a huge amount of gameplay in the campaign itself.
And if you're going to include a campaign editor, that's going to be like a lot. Because these battles aren't quick. Like the one battle I did that I won by sheer luck, I guess, was at least a half an hour, and that was a smallish one. That was 4-on-3, I think.
Interesting. Well, we also have the skirmish mode. Have you looked at that yet?
I really haven't because I've been trying to learn the game.
Yeah, I should have put skirmish mode first because this gives you all these quick little ways to do battles, set the fights exactly as you want. So if you click on skirmish mode, you'll see you can decide what house you are, how big your fleet is, what weapons are on your fleet, put them up against the enemy, give the enemy no ship or one ship, switch between destroy all ships. Oh, we got the Seize the Space Station one, which is a lot of fun. I'm sorry I don't have the space station in the mission editor, but seizing the space station is a lot of fun. Different level of space debris. But this is really where you can define your battles so you can try out all the different weapons we give you in different combinations against whatever enemy fleet is and get your space legs together before you actually go into the missions themselves. So this is one of these crazy little arguments that designers can have for weeks or months on end. Should the player first get the option for the missions or the skirmishes? Missions, no, skirmishes. So we went with missions because we figured most of our players were interested in the universe and the setting. But we so easily could just put up these skirmishes and you go straight into these battles and be having fun modifying it all and never realize there are missions in the game.
Maybe you have a small tutorial campaign. Like just a few battles that fully flesh out, like, because the tutorial is like one battle and it's really short and it doesn't explain everything. And so maybe you have like a few battles that like explain.
That maybe add on to more concepts as you go through.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good idea because really one of the things I'm most disappointed in myself about with this is that the tutorial isn't a tutorial to the Fading Suns either.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. It doesn't.
And
really
I wish I had done that. You were the noble. Do this.
Right.
Rise up in rank in your house. Bring honor to your house, etc., etc.
Right. And yeah, it really doesn't do that either. And please don't think we're trying to be mean. We're trying to actually give constructive criticism to make the game better.
Hey, like I said the other day or Saturday night, James Portnow, myself, Eddie Webb, and Michelle Menard. Michelle's with a great company, Oxide Engineering. She's working for Axis and like. We picked up a horror game that we wanted to love, and we streamed our critique of it, and we didn't love it as much as we'd hoped. So I'm ready to get some grief from my fellows in the development community and the dev community when they see our commentary. So I'm all ready for some hating on my game, baby.
No, it's not hate. Believe me, it's just
I know.
Yeah, no hate at all.
I appreciate it. I appreciate feedback, but sorry, I can't talk anymore. Now I'm playing my game. Sorry, Malik gotta die.
All right, well, folks, that was the Space Game Junkie podcast. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sorry, I love things dying, man. This is cool.
Join us next
Hey,
week.
I'm gray. What does that mean?
Join us next week when our guest will be Zsa Zsa Gabor.
Oh, missiles missing. That was good.
This is why we don't play the game live anymore.
Sorry, we're talking? What was that?
No, exactly. Be like, goddamn missiles. Yeah, it's like, wait, we have a guest. Yeah. Sorry, you were here?
I think a good introduction to the player would be like if you took them out on a target range first and said, okay, maneuver around, touch these points, And then it's basically the old fly through hoops, right? Like
Right.
hit these waypoints, and that way you've figured out in a setting where things are not shooting at you and there's no asteroids to bounce off of or kill yourself. This is how you maneuver the ship around, and then drop some static targets out there. And it's just, shoot those. Because I was also kind of struggling with how the guns fired, because I picked the ship I want to shoot at, but he's in motion, and my guys aim at where he is. So therefore, they have to lead the target, right? And they're not. So is that a thing that I need to tell them somehow? Because I click the target reticle, and then I pick a ship to shoot at, and as long as he's in the arc, it automatically fired. But I don't know how to make them adjust for leading a ship that's moving.
Right, it absolutely is a thing, and unfortunately, we just kind of fudge it by saying that your speed and their speed modify your accuracy.
Oh, okay.
So the faster you're going, the faster they're going, the less likely you are to hit. And that's an unfortunate thing, that we don't give you that option to lead, which would be very cool. It's just your guys are this good, and you're going this fast, and they're going that fast, and you're at this distance, therefore you have this chance to hit.
Okay, because I couldn't tell that it was just like bad dice roll sort of thing. It just seemed like, okay, the shots go straight out the side. How do I solve that problem?
I'll never be able to hit. No, there's a chance. But yeah,
you're
right.
surrounded by assholes.
No, go ahead and do the Spaceballs mission. I hadn't even thought of doing a Spaceballs mission. I need to do that.
That's great.
Have you ever seen Ken Burnside's Attack Vector Tactical? The tabletop game? Okay. Something to look at. It's a pretty complex, full Newtonian physics tabletop spaceship war game, right? And it's full Newtonian in 3 dimensions. So he's got a navigation system that's basically a sphere, and then you plot movement on the sphere, but you set your thrust level, and then it's got a chart where you calculate out using the chart like which hex you're going to actually end up in. Because if you do a 90-degree turn and then step on the gas, you're not going to end up doing a 90-degree turn. You're gonna kind of curve over there. So he's got a chart that basically pre-calculates all the curves for you. Wow, which is nice. It would be wonderful if he'd bring it to a computer game.
Hell yeah!
But
oh my god,
it's kind of what I was thinking though while I was playing your game, because it's like I set which way I want the ship to face, and then the further away I drag the waypoint is. I noticed that's actually setting the amount of thrust that I'm going to apply.
That's right.
So then it fires a burst, and I go that way. So it plays out very much like that, except it's 3 dimensions and it's on paper.
Neat.
You can imagine the problem set to solve. So then to the player looking at this, it's just you look at this on the rule book and on the ship control sheet, because it's kind of got like a Starfleet Battles looking thing, and you look at that and you're just like, nah, I can't. The human mind can't do this. So what he set up is a tutorial in there, and there's actually like a demo version of the game you can download that's got this scenario in it. He suggested putting like Hershey's Kisses out on the map, and then you fly the ship, and you have to hit the Hershey's Kiss, and when you hit it, you get to eat it. So that's your figuring out how to fly.
That's a great idea.
I'm going to include that in the tutorial.
Feed your crew. Craig has some more questions from YouTube.
Sure.
Do ship systems take damage during battle that affects systems like sensors, targeting, blah blah blah? And I believe you answered this other one. Is there crew veterancy? Because it sounds like there is crew experience. I believe
that's right. Said. We've got 4 levels. None, 1, 2, 3, 4. Veterans, I think, we have as the highest level. And yeah, they definitely make a difference in the game as your crew gets better and your Marines get better. The ship systems, guns you can get taken out. Shields can come back over time. But as for sensors and the like, no. But one thing that we did do is that in boarding combat, the longer your ships, or longer your Marines stay on enemy ship, or their Marines stay on your ship, the more damage they do there as well. So they can take out shields and guns and engines and so on. So yeah, your engines can be damaged as well. But sensors, no. Targeting, no.
Okay. And I was going to ask a question, but now I've totally blanked on it.
But
Great.
I like the idea, and Alaris is having fun in there with having tips on the loading screen. You're right. The tutorial was brief, so we definitely need to knock that one on up as well. And again, to give it information on the fading sun setting as well, give some cool things about your various heresies and the like. So could definitely have some fun with that I should have done to begin with.
Now, there's another facet of the game, the crew boarding, which is also almost this kind of mini game.
Yep.
How did that come
It is
about?
our turn-based game. I got my turn-based game in there. So I was very happy to have that in there. Yes, that's exactly right. It is a basically. Oh, hello. You are missing out by not having me on video right now. Fairy Princess America has joined us.
What?
No, who are you tonight?
Queen of my mother.
Yes, you are the queen of the dance.
If we're really good, we might get a puppet show out of this.
Wow.
He doesn't have a weapon.
Where are you going to? Sorry, everyone. This is far more important than game sale.
I'm going to Fancy Nancy the Center.
You are going to Fancy Nancy's party. Excellent. Yes, my daughter just appeared in full princess garb and every piece of jewelry in her collection, lacking only her shield. Usually she goes out as Fairy Princess America.
Princess now.
Yeah, she is a princess right now. She's not Princess Captain America.
You got to start that cosplay early.
All right.
So anyway,
You have great dancing.
So the boarding is a fairly simple but pretty fun game, I have to say.
Thank you. Yeah, we went back and forth on this one too. Initially, we completely abstracted it. And you just connected and you either won or you didn't. And we both said, eh. And then we started getting into various boarding combat systems. And we didn't want something that tore you completely out of the space combat game, because really boarding could be a full game in itself. But we wanted something that gave you some reason to sweat and some strategic decisions to make. So you send over your Marines, you see how many they get, you're trying to take their bridge in a certain amount of time. Basically, we can't have you spending forever in the boarding combat because there is a space battle going on around outside you. If you don't win in 10 turns, the boarding combat's over and you're back to the base game. But you can go in there and just do damage to the enemy's ship or try and capture it. And like with the Seize the Space Station skirmish mode, you'll have to do several different boarding attempts before you can actually take it. So, yeah, I love the boarding combat. And we talked about having actual images of combat, but for a variety of reasons, including the trying to avoid blood, we show your icon. So you have the Ducatos Mantis Warriors versus the Hawkwood Lion Rampants and the like, battling it out. Right. And you have to decide which airlock you come in at, and you've got your options, and you can cut off your own Marines by getting in their way or combine units to make them bigger after they've taken damage and so forth.
Oh, so you can only combine them after they've taken some losses.
It depends what they come in. I think we max them out at 30 or 40.
Ah, okay.
So if you come in with the depleted Marine force or with like an Explorer, you can combine them right off the bat. But if you come in with a fairly robust force, you'll have to take some damage before you can recombine.
How close do you have to be to execute a boarding?
Yeah, the grapples are your shortest range weapons. You have to be basically a ship length or two away. I forget how we decided that.
Oh.
While ago.
Maybe that's your tutorial target is give them some like supply things to grapple, right?
That's
it's like here's a supply container. So you fly over to it, grapple it, throw some Marines in,
maybe
them to just recover the box, and then and then that way you taught maneuvering and boarding.
Well, I was thinking maybe break it up a little bit, like you have a tutorial, a little campaign or mission, and one battle is just maneuvering, and then the next battle is shooting, and the next battle is boarding. So you get to focus on one key concept at a time. Maybe something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just
Do
thinking,
it in
well, you could-
stages, so to speak.
yeah, so it builds on, like, if you make them fly through waypoints first, and then approach with the, add docking to it afterwards. So then the waypoints become little bases that you have to dock at to get supplies or something. And then that would allow you to also incorporate boarding in it. So, it'd be maybe like 3 missions to get them into it.
That's a good idea.
And then at the end of the 3rd mission, drop an actual enemy ship and just be like, oh no, they've shown up, and, don't die.
Right.
I like that.
Alaris has raised the point about firing range. That's something we actually, again, went back and forth on. And this is my fault. The programmer put in a code so you could see who was within range and not. But I come out of the old miniatures game school where if you've measured it, you fired it. So I said, no, not knowing is going to be part of the gameplay, figuring that out. But as Alaris is noting, yeah, you do have to constantly check.
Yeah, you have to keep hitting that target button. Oh, can't shoot him now. Yeah, I mean, I get where you're coming from, but at the same time, a computer gamer, I think, wants a little more information than that.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And that's, again, part of it being an old school gamer is
right. No, I get it.
Take one's own attitude out of it.
I get it. Like, I play a lot of old school games for this channel, and sometimes the old school works, and sometimes it doesn't.
Oh, and you were asking about windowed mode. You're right. Control W takes you into the windows, and Control F goes full screen again.
Oh, excellent. Thanks.
Side question: is there a way to get Emperor of the Fading Suns into a windowed mode? Do you know at all? Is there, please?
Struggle has been real.
Because I've tried capturing that game with 2 different programs, and it's hard booted my PC.
Yeah, no. No.
Someone on YouTube said they did it with a window. I'm like, how? How did you do that? I need to know.
Yeah, I remember at the time because we were coming out of it with a pure DOS library, and we were converting our DOS library to a Windows library at the time. I mean, remember this? We were working on this in '95.
Right.
I remember that being one of the problems we had at the time. Of course, you are talking about problems I had 23 years ago. So.
I know. I just thought
I was the one who solved it then, by any means.
I just thought I'd ask. So back to Noble Armada. What are some of like the next things you have planned for the early access period? For the early access.
Yeah, so we're adding more missions specifically for people now, fixing that campaign editor, hopefully getting it more streamlined. Apparently, completely reworking the tutorial. Thanks,
Yay!
Working on the manual. Thanks, Space Gamer Junkie.
Yay!
We are also working on the mobile versions and cross your fingers console as well. So we've got some strong console for this one. Yeah.
I could kind of see this working with a I could kind of see this working with a gamepad. Would you use like the analog stick to move around the? Oh,
that's our current thinking.
I could see that. Or maybe
you have the key bindings defined in a text file somewhere. If I did want to edit them, I could crack that open.
That is completely a Fusion question. So let me go ahead and pass that on to Chris. Actually, I think he's just... Let me see if I can get him in the chat.
Yeah, because if I can't... I mean, it would take time to actually put in like a UI screen that would let me do it, right? But if I could just pop open a notepad and do it, that's enough.
I think that's a Fusion issue they don't allow, but let's find out.
Yeah, because I want to move it from the arrow keys to WSAD to move the map around, and then, like I said, spacebar for pause.
So how long do you envision the early access period lasting?
Part of that depends on what we end up doing regarding console. The idea had been through the end of the year, but if we get the console stuff going, it'd be into early next year. So, but I really want it by spring to be pretty complete. I mean, it's a very complete game now, as you're seeing. But as we get all the different platforms together, that's when it needs to change. Key bindings are hardwired currently.
Okay.
So that is a Fusion issue with it. Again, we did drive Fusion forward in a number of ways. That was not one of them.
Well, it's already really, really. Oh yeah, Alaris brings up a good point. What are some of the I've only played like one or two houses, but what are some of the differences between the ships you get for the different houses?
Right. I mean, there's range differences. There are a number of marine differences. I think we might have overpowered the Hazat a bit at the beginning of the game. Now, just because I wrote the Hazat books and the Hazat sections of the rule books and so forth had nothing to do with it. And underpowered the Al-Malik a little bit in the initial version of the game. So the ships themselves do have some differences. We kept them relatively minute. I really should have gone with bigger differences between them, but they are there. The guns, the starting guns, and the starting numbers of Marines and crew being the big ones. We set up the Al-Malik kind of to be the big boarding house, but I don't necessarily think it came out as much as it should have. So that's something we're still tweaking around with those numbers. So the Hazat themselves within our game system are the most militant. The Hawkwood were the ones who won the Emperor Wars. They tend to be the more strategic one. Thus, early on, we were giving them better range. The Kados early on had the more brutal guns and a closer range, but again, the differences are really minor at game start.
Gotcha. Alaris brings up a good point that the player, a lot of players probably aren't so familiar with Fading Suns. There should be a way for them to like maybe when you choose a house, what are the advantages and disadvantages of that house? When they're choosing a house, And
I mean, that was the big thing in Emperor of the Fading Suns. I really hate that we scrapped that for this game. So with EFS, you had distinct house advantages and disadvantages.
Oh, yeah.
And you could change them around and the like, but you had your default settings. And I love doing that with EFS, coming up with this huge long list of strengths and weaknesses that your house could get. And you could buy more weaknesses to get more strengths and so on. And I loved creating that. People loved playing around with that. And unfortunately, we don't have it in this game. It was just getting too awkward to do right off the bat. But that's something that's on my wish list for down the road, having that sort of option to give yourself advantages and disadvantages.
I was going to say, is there any kind of post-release roadmap you have in mind? And that already sounds like a thing. There
are a number of things we'd like to do with it. So we'd put the Fading Suns universe on a hiatus for a bit. We'd license it out to some people instead of working on it ourselves. And some of that was successful, some of it not so much. There are new editions of the Fading Suns rules book out that we would not have done, and it kept it somewhat alive, but certainly not with the energy that we'd had when we were in our prime before we started having publishers die on us. So recently, a number of us have gotten back together and said, okay, it's time to recreate it. Unfortunately, the universe falling apart theme is far too relevant again. So let's start playing with it one more time. Again, these games are very much meant to reflect our own worlds as much as our science fiction settings. So we've got some new work going on with the Novara Motto miniatures game. We started doing this game seriously. We got the new Fading Suns 4th version. We certainly do want to do something else with Emperor of the Fading Suns. This was kind of a proof of concept to get things moving again. To get the band back together, man. And
that is awesome.
Seeing what we could do with a new version. It's kind of funny. We hit our down phase as a company right before crowdfunding came about. And I've always kind of regretted, after we'd had the publishers dying on us, if we could have just crowdfunded the Noble Armada computer game we were working on then. I mean, we had a solid demo ready.
Yeah, and it wasn't too long. It wasn't too long after EFS, so it was still fairly fresh in people's minds.
And the role-playing game was still selling very well.
Yeah. That's the time I was doing the pen and paper stuff, was like the late 90s. Yeah.
Right. So, like, if Kickstarter had been a thing in the early aughts, 2004, 2005, we could have gotten Noble Armada done. I mean, we couldn't get a publisher at that time. We could have gotten the fans to support it and bootstrapped as we were doing at the time. But at the time, we were just bootstrapping and didn't have the Kickstarter level of support. Now, who knows what we could do if we could kick this back up, energize, rebuild the audience. I mean, the main goal of the Kickstarter we did for Noble Armada was to get cool user content coming out with it with the mission editor. But I'll be honest, a big part of it is also to reinvigorate the fan base that we had in place, folks who love Fading Suns, and see what kind of cool things we can do down the line. And the Kickstarter was successful, did exactly what we wanted to do, so maybe we'll be able to do something interesting with EFS in the future. EFS is not exactly a game a publisher wants to take a risk on these days.
Right, but I want it. I mean, that should be enough for you. Why isn't
you
it
mentioned
enough
Serenity.
for you?
It's hilarious. When Serenity came out, we had all these players saying, "Did you license it? Is this Fading Suns in a new way?" And
God, right?
Joss Whedon did such great stuff with that. I'm certainly not going to claim credit for it, but I did like that our minds think somewhat alike.
I did kind of see similarities in the universe, in the small verse of Serenity, compared to the larger universe of Fading Suns.
Right.
But that was also a fun pen and paper role playing system. Was the Serenity system?
Oh yeah, that team did a great job.
Yeah,
definitely agree with you on that.
Easy to get into, simple D6 system, just a great system.
No, they specifically made it accessible for Serenity fans who wanted to role play and really hadn't done it. I think they did that very well.
They did that very, very well. Yeah, I got to say that was probably one of the most accessible RPG systems I've ever played, which is surprising because so many RPG systems aren't that accessible.
Right. And I'm not. I mean, Fading Suns. We didn't make Fading Suns to be the most accessible. We were going for people who were already in tabletop or who were already role-playing. We did not see it as an intro system.
No.
We definitely let people stretch with it. And again, threw everything in so they could make it what they wanted.
It's funny you mentioned Vampire because that was the first system I ever played.
Oh, excellent. That one we did try to be a bit more accessible.
Yeah, that was way
rule system.
That was way more accessible.
That was my second.
What was your first?
My first was D&D. But
Okay.
yeah, actually no, that was technically my third because I did D&D and then Top Secret SI.
Oh yeah, Top Secret.
And then White Wolf after that. I still have my books.
I'm afraid to tell you what my first role-playing game was.
Go ahead.
In the 70s, there was a game called Bunnies and Burrows.
What?
Based on Watership Down.
No.
Wow.
Oh my
Absolutely.
God.
Absolutely. And so when I was a kid, this was the first RPG I did. You played a rabbit. Basically, they have a burrow. They're battling owls and allying with chipmunks and so forth. And it was actually done by a lagomorphosist or whatever a rabbit scientist is. And I was a kid, so I never used the reproduction rules, but it was the first game I saw with reproduction rules included.
How did the dice mechanics work? Because rabbits can't count above 5.
That was one of the best parts of it. That was one of the very best parts of it. Let me see if I remember it right. It was 1, 2, 3, many.
Excellent.
Brilliant.
No, that was one of the parts.
Wow.
That's why I'm here,
That's one of
folks.
the parts.
Wow. Oh, I didn't know pen and paper went back that far. To be honest.
Yeah, this was a late 70s game. Yeah, we had a great deal of fun with Bunnies and Burrows. It was an attempt to be an intro game, but boy, was it not. That was my first role-playing game.
So it sounds like 2019 is going to be a really exciting year for Fading Suns fans. We got this coming to full release, plus we have a new version of the tabletop system coming out, which...
That's exactly right. And we're looking to support each other a good bit more. Again, when the FS4 comes out, expect there to be a new rush of missions coming out for Noble Armada.
No. Oh, that's great. That's a fabulous idea. I love
and campaigns. And this is why I'm not really pushing the campaign editor yet. Now, come when we get the Fading Suns tabletop game out again, that's when I would love to have the campaign editor ready for prime time.
Oh man, can you imagine someone running a pen and paper role playing game and then using this for space battles?
Of people did EFS, and I loved that. People would take parts of their Emperor of the Fading Suns game they were doing.
I did
you all
that.
got to remember, this is a hot seat play by email game, so you'd have turns waiting a week. So you would do a turn of the game and do some role playing within whatever was going on in the larger EFS.
No, I'll tell you, I got a lot of the ideas for my pen and papers campaign from EFS as I played.
Oh, excellent!
So yeah, there was definitely some cross pollination there.
When I was in junior high school, I based a fantasy game I was doing on the War of the Roses, based on Avalon Hill's Kingmaker tabletop game, and that's kind of what inspired the EFS crossovers and the like. Where
still not a copy of that.
So yeah, there'd be a turn of Kingmaker, and suddenly this noble would be stripped for power, and this one would die, and this one would be promoted, and then the adventures for the PCs would be somehow tied into that.
So Alaris and I would like to know when the Fading Suns MMO is happening. Expect maybe 2021, maybe.
Because MMOs are now such a thing.
They still are, believe it or not. They still are a thing. They're still coming out. So, why not?
What's the new MMO? Who's doing a new MMO?
Black Desert Online is a newish one.
Everybody in Korea.
A lot of Koreans. But like Elder Scrolls Online is only 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah, Alaris says MMOs are actually a big deal still. They are, but new MMOs are something you're not seeing that much.
The thing is, though, there aren't a lot of sci-fi MMOs.
That is very true. And the part of the reason with that, there are a lot of reasons for that, but one of the main reasons is the ability to just get up and leave the planet.
Yeah.
How do you control for that? And with Fading Suns, we've always done that. I mean, that was a core part of the role-playing of the computer game, of the role-playing game, is that the jump gates can be shut down. You could be completely stuck on planet, even though there are spaceships going around you. And that's something obviously an FS MMO is something we did kick around. One of the ideas was you have a system that's closed off when the thing starts up, so you can travel between planets, but you can't leave the solar system. And then at some point, 2 or 3 years in, suddenly the jump gate opens.
Oh, please make this happen.
All this shit coming in at you, and then you're able to leave.
Please kickstart this, please. I will. Whatever you want, whatever I can give. I want this to happen so badly. Oh my god.
How many kidneys do you have?
I still have 2. So, you can have one. I would. Oh my god, you would get my money so fast.
I do. So we're working on Noble Armada. I would like to do a new edition of EFS.
Oh god.
The next one on my list really is going back to that Noble Armada one that we did in the past, getting some of that old team back together, getting that funded, and kicking that into high gear, because I really want a space game. I hate to see Star. Gosh, Mamias, what the heck is the game called now?
Star Citizen?
Yeah, let's just go with no. Last, I've got the wrong windows open right now. Let me see if I can see what the official name is these days. Starfighter. I guess he's still using Starfighter Inc. So let's just say Starfighter Inc.
Oh,
so right. Starfighter Inc. He's doing this great version. I mean, you've got lots of ship combat, you've got lots of personal adventuring and building up your spaceship and so forth. And I want to do that Fading Suns universe. What I haven't seen him put in yet, Jack and Dave have put in yet, which I want, is that whole political and questing side. That's a big part of the Fading Suns setting. I want you to, the way Noble Armada was set up with that earlier version of the game was you were going to start as some low-ranking guy in a house doing those basic kill rats missions and starting to uncover the deeper secrets and getting involved in the deeper politics of it. Salandra Ducados, who in many ways we set up as a supervillain in the Fading Suns universe without her actually being a villain, was someone who'd become a reoccurring part, sometimes a sponsor, sometimes an enemy, and just dig you into the politics more and more, and you'd advance as part of the universe and reveal more and more of the secrets as you travel between more and more of the stars. So that's the one I'd really like to see come after a revised DFS, but we'll see. We'll see. It all depends on the success of all the other elements coming together. And yeah, I do have a lot of things I'd like to do with Noble Armada Lost Worlds, but would really like to see that be the jumping off point to the Fading Suns game that's also a role-playing game and an adventure game tying with all the politics.
Yeah, that would be.
And I'll get a couple more kitchen sinks to throw in there when I've got spare time.
Oh, yes. All right, so folks, the game is Noble Armada Lost Worlds. It is currently on early access on Steam. What is the price? Remind me. I don't know.
Currently $19.99.
Currently $19.99.
Making sure, and we're about to. So we launched in late September, mid-September, and anyone who buys it within the first month, we're going to be doing a whole bunch of new missions that only they get.
Ooh.
I shouldn't say a bunch of new missions. We're doing some new missions that only they will get, and then will be retired forever.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. But it's already got a lot of gameplay to it. There is a learning curve. Just know that going in. There is a learning curve. It takes a little while to click, but apparently they're going to be working on that.
Yes, we will. And a manual.
So, but it's got boarding. It's got combat. It's very naval. It's like very naval in space, which is a lot of times what you want in a space combat game. So it's really, really good. So definitely check it out.
Exploration.
Yeah, definitely exploration.
Exploring Lost Worlds.
Right. So there's a lot of good stuff in there. So just a couple of programming notes real quick. This Thursday for the LAN party, we're going to be trying a co-op game called Dustwind. Very excited about that. That looks like a lot of fun. And then a thing next Tuesday, the podcast is moving back half an hour. We are going back to the top of the hour. So starting next week, we're going back to 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for our afternoon shows. The morning shows will still be at 6 a.m. usually. But we're moving back to the top of the hour because it's just easier than doing 5:30. And also, just FYI, I might have jury duty, so we might have to not have next week's show. I don't know. But if we do have next week's show, it's going to be at 5 o'clock, and we're going to be talking to the guy who's making StarCon Nexus, which is a very fun top-down, star-flighty exploration thing, but without that really annoying rover stuff that ruined the long journey home, for example. It's really great. There's a preview video on the channel if you haven't seen it already. So that's who we're going to talk to, hopefully next week, if I don't have jury duty. But Andrew,
I should mention the LAN party is also moving back a half an hour starting next week.
That's right. Thank you very much. So yeah, both Tuesdays and Thursdays are moving back to 5 o'clock starting next week. Because that's just a little easier to remember, and it's an easier start time. So that'll be great. What is next week? What is next week's LAN party? Do you remember? Oh, it's Star Trek Bridge Crew. I think that's next week. That's exciting. So yeah, Andrew, thank you. You've been a fantastic guest. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Sorry for bending your ear so much.
No. We love knowing. That's one of the reasons we do this is because we love finding out how the sausage is made, and talking to game devs from like the last golden age of gaming, like the 90s, especially, is always exciting because we get some of the best stories out of talking to game developers from those olden days. So
we didn't really get into the dirt. Do you want the nasty stories? Oh, sorry, we're out of time.
That's probably best.
I was thinking we could have you back just to talk about Vampire the Masquerade and stuff at some point. So how did you feel? Because were you involved in the lore part of that, or like what
very
piece
much
of that
so.
pie
Yeah,
did you?
yeah.
Okay,
Almost
so whenever I went,
Book
and
of
saw
Nod is one of people's favorite books. Sam Chupp wrote that when I was a developer on it. We and I worked pretty closely on that. He did some great writing on it. The Zaphod stuff.
Because I went and saw the Blade movie in the theater, and I was like, damn, they just straight ripped off the Camarillo.
Yeah, to a great degree.
Yeah,
that's still a great movie.
It's like that movie, whatever the name of it was.
Underworld?
Bright? No, it was.
Bright was terrible. Bright was. I couldn't even finish that.
Bright was. Oh, I know, but it was just like I had to ask Mitch. It's like, did they even talk to you guys about Shadowrun before they made that movie? Nope, not a word.
God, that movie just made me want to watch Alien Nation, which is entirely what I did. Like a week.
I don't know
later.
if you knew that. After I left White Wolf, that was when was it Underworld, the vampires versus werewolf movie came out.
Yeah, Underworld, yes.
White Wolf ended up suing
what?
Sony over that. And I was actually an expert witness on behalf of White Wolf.
What?
I left White Wolf a number of years before that. And that's why actually Sony in very small letters shows a license from the World of Darkness.
Oh dear God, that's
that
amazing.
helped White Wolf get through some rough times.
That's amazing. And
you could maybe advise Brian on his jury duty then.
You'll love this even more then. So I've never had. I get called every couple of years, but I've never served on a jury. And one of the most common questions, especially with a civil case, is have you ever been involved in a trial in any way? I've been an expert witness once. What were you an expert witness on? Honest to God. So I go, what were you an expert witness on? I said, vampires. The place goes quiet. And the lawyer says, I think there's an interesting story there, but next juror, please. And needless to say, I did not serve on that jury.
My favorite was George Carlin. He would say, if you want to get out of a jury, tell them, whenever they ask you a question, tell them you could spot guilty people just like that. You will never serve on a jury.
I wouldn't mind serving. They're just never going to want me.
I've served twice, and it's actually an interesting experience. I just don't want to do it now. I don't want to do it again. I did it like 2 years ago. I don't want to do it again. But anyway, folks, thank you so much for listening. And I don't ask this a lot, but if you haven't subscribed to either the YouTubes or the Twitches or the podcasts, just throw a little subscription our way. You know, we like those numbers going up. So that's all. Just going to ask you that.
I'm subscribed.
Son of a bitch. No. God damn it, we're losing them left and right. No. But Andrew, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. It was a lot of fun. And,
my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Folks, we'll see you on Thursday and then next Tuesday. Have a great night, everybody. Bye-bye.